The sands remember. When Dr. Elliot Monroe first set foot on the blistering sands of Egypt, he wasn't chasing fame or fortune, he was chasing legacy. He had grown up on dusty National Geographic issues and old VHS tapes of tomb discoveries. His father, a respected archaeologist, had vanished in the Valley of the Kings when Elliot was just 13. Now 37, with thinning hair and restless hands, Elliot stood on the brink of the same valley, hoping to finish what his father had started. The expedition was modest. Just Elliot, two local guides brothers named Yusuf and Omar, and a grad student named Rachel, who'd begged to join. Rachel was bright and eager, her enthusiasm a sharp contrast to Elliot's worn cynicism. They were here to investigate an unmapped rock formation west of KV-62, one Elliot had spent years researching in forgotten British archives. It began with a whispering wind. The first day passed uneventfully, but by sunset, strange symbols emerged under the light on a wall they hadn't noticed before. An entrance, perhaps, once sealed by time and neglect. The inscriptions didn't match known dynasties. They were older, Proto-Egyptian maybe. Elliot's heart pounded. He traced one with a gloved finger, a spiral within a scarab, enclosed by two eyes that bled lines downward like tears. "This isn't right," Rachel murmured behind him. "It doesn't match anything I've studied." "It predates recorded history," Elliot whispered. "It might be a proto-pharaoh, prehistoric, but royal." Yusuf warned them not to touch the stone again. He had grown pale when he saw the spiral. "This place was hidden for a reason," he said. "There are stories. A pharaoh who ruled with black fire. His name was stricken from all records. Even priests feared him." "You mean Setek?" Elliot asked. "No. Setek was a god," Yusuf said. This was worse. By nightfall, the wind picked up, howling against the rock, like screams buried in sand. Rachel swore she saw movement, something tall and bandaged just outside the lantern's glow, but Omar told her it was mirage and nerves. Still, no one slept. The temperature dropped to near freezing. Elliot huddled in his tent, watching shadows crawl across the fabric. Once, just before dawn, he heard a voice like gravel whisper, "He waits." On the second day, they breached the entrance. It took 4 hours of careful excavation, revealing a narrow corridor descending into darkness. Every inch was covered in carvings of a figure with no name depicted with a gold crown, black skin, and burning eyes. At his feet lay mounds of corpses, their faces erased. Rachel documented everything, her camera flashing down into the abyss. "These walls are wrong," she muttered. "They show the pharaoh after death, still ruling, still killing." Yusuf refused to go inside. "I told you," he said, packing his bag. "You should leave this place sealed." But Elliot couldn't stop now. He led the way, Rachel behind him, Omar reluctantly taking up the rear. The corridor spiraled downward for hundreds of feet, the air growing colder and denser until their breath fogged. Eventually, they reached a great stone door, half buried in sand. On it, the carved figure stood tall above a screaming crowd. His hand reached toward the viewer, palm open, as if beckoning. There was no lock, only a faint hum, and when Elliot pressed his palm into the spiral symbol at the door's center, it shuddered open. Inside was a chamber unlike any in the valley. It wasn't the typical tomb filled with treasures and offerings. This was sparse, black stone walls, a ceiling that shimmered with embedded gems, and at the center, a sarcophagus carved from volcanic glass. All around were dozens of stone jars, more than normal for canopic purposes. They were sealed with wax and inscribed with a sigil Elliot had never seen before. A ring of thorns encasing a weeping eye. "This isn't burial," Rachel whispered. "This is containment." They should have left then. But Elliot approached the sarcophagus. He felt drawn to it, like gravity had shifted in the room. Something in his blood urged him closer. The lid had no seams, no handles, just the spiral. Omar said a prayer under his breath. "Help me," Elliot said, kneeling beside the coffin. "We'll document everything. Just a peek. Then we reseal it." Rachel hesitated. "We should wait, call the university, bring a full team." But Elliot pressed his hand to the spiral again. The lid slid back with a hiss of escaping air. The smell of rot, sand, and incense filled the room. Inside was a wrapped figure, unusually tall. Its bindings blackened like scorched fabric. Its face was covered by a golden mask, elongated and emotionless, with no eye holes. Beneath the mask, a whisper echoed. Omar turned and ran. Elliot barely noticed. His eyes were locked on the figure. A faint shimmer danced across its chest, like heat distortion. Rachel raised her camera, took one photo, and the flash lit up the chamber, and for a brief moment, the mummy's hand twitched. Later, when they played back the footage, it would show the mummy looking at the camera. They resealed the sarcophagus in a panic and returned to the surface. But something came with them. That night, Elliot awoke to Rachel screaming. Her tent was torn open. She was standing outside, barefoot in the cold sand, eyes wide and bleeding from the corners. "He's watching us," she sobbed. "He walks while we sleep." They packed up the next morning. Omar was gone. No footprints led away from camp. Just his empty bedroll and a lingering silence. Yusef cursed Elliot, refusing to ride in the same jeep. He drove off alone, and the desert swallowed him. Rachel barely spoke. She stared out the window, twitching at shadows. They made it back to Luxor by nightfall, where Elliot checked her into a private clinic. She wept any time the lights were off. 3 days later, Rachel was found dead in her room. No signs of trauma, just 2 perfect holes in her forehead, and her blood frozen in place like it had stopped moving all at once. Elliot flew home to the States, mask and artifacts secured in custom crates. The university celebrated his find as revolutionary. Oldest royal burial ever discovered, they proclaimed. He was given a lecture slot, museum features, TV spots. But at night, Elliot couldn't sleep. He heard shuffling, whispering, sand leaking from his ceiling vents. The spiral appeared in his bathroom mirror, on his cereal box, burned into toast. He began seeing a figure at the edge of his vision, tall, bandaged, wearing a golden mask, always watching, always getting closer. One night, he found Yusef sitting in his living room, dirt-covered, eyes sunken. "You brought it back," he whispered. "It follows whoever sees its face. You broke the seal." Elliot tried to apologize, tried to explain. But Yusef pulled a jagged knife from his coat and slit his own throat, gurgling, "Seal it again, before it takes form." Police chalked it up to mental illness. Elliot didn't argue. The spiral now etched itself into everything he owned. His walls, his bed sheets, his skin. He scratched it off, but it always came back. And at night, he heard breathing from the sarcophagus in the museum basement. The mummy was waking up. Staff reported flickering lights. Security guards quit. One swore he saw the display glass melting. Another disappeared mid-shift, just gone. His flashlight was found beneath the mask's display. Elliot tried to warn the board, but they labeled him unstable. They locked him out of the museum, so he broke in. He carried with him the Book of Thorns, a forbidden codex found in the tomb's upper passage, bound in something that might have been human leather. It contained a ritual of binding, a way to put the pharaoh back to sleep. But it required blood, sacrifice, memory. Elliot wasn't sure what that meant until he stood before the display at 3:33 a.m. The mummy stood upright in the glass, breathing, eyes glowing beneath the golden mask. "Name yourself," Elliot whispered. And the figure spoke, for the first time in 60 years. "I am Sa-Hemeket, King of Kings, Warden of Death. I remember you," Elliot screamed as the spiral ignited on his chest. Blood poured from his ears, his limbs went stiff, and Sa-Hemeket stepped through the glass like it wasn't there. The pharaoh's touch turned the air cold, the floor cracked with frost. Elliot recited the words from the book, but they twisted in his throat, warped by an ancient language his mind couldn't contain. "You can't be real," he sobbed. "The sands remember," the pharaoh said. Elliot's body crumpled to the floor, his skin drying, peeling, blackening, turning to dust before his own eyes. And Sa-Hemeket walked free. Now the museum is closed. "A gas leak," they said. But strange figures have been seen in the halls after midnight. Security cameras show sandstorms erupting indoors. Artifacts rearrange themselves into spirals overnight. The mummy is no longer in his glass. He is in the walls, in the vents, in the dreams of anyone who saw him. Rachel, Omar, Elliot, and you. Because now you've read his name. And the sands remember. They always remember.